Good morning, beautiful fellow messy and perfect human. I really hope you're well today. It's about 5:30 here in London and it's raining, so I've had to change spot. I'm now under the safety of the veranda. Yes, I had to do a bit of a different setup this morning. But welcome back if you're returning, and welcome if it's your first time to the Big Sigh, this YouTube channel where the invitation is just to join me in slowing down and really getting in touch with ourselves and what's really alive and real for us in the moment, and to sort of drop the masks even just for the next 10 minutes, just to say, okay, can I connect to myself and allow what's real to have a bit of airtime, because, well, speaking for myself, I've certainly spent so much time trying to convince others that everything's okay, or putting on a mask or performing in some way. So yeah, this is really an invitation for you to join me in just taking a massive sigh and giving up so much effort. Oh wow, the rain is really coming down. Feels quite comforting in a way. So yeah, maybe we can just take a big sigh together, and as always, as we do it, just kind of imagine dropping the shoulders and sort of just giving up all this effort that we've been putting in, and just being honest with ourselves and facing the truth of whatever's alive in you right now. If there's anything that you've been sort of holding onto or trying really hard to achieve, or you've been clinging on to some sort of identity, this is just a moment where we can just be like, okay, this is me. As much as I may want it to be different, and as much as I'm worried about other people not accepting it, this is me right now, take it or leave it, So yeah, maybe we can just take a big in-breath together, and just on the way out, just sigh in whatever way feels comfortable to you. So I'm going to take a nice big in-breath. So yeah, maybe just taking a moment to stay with yourself, with your eyes closed if you want, and just, if you can, just allow the mind to have a little less importance, and tune in to what's alive for you in this moment, what's going on in your body, what's the theme of this moment, what's alive right now for you, wherever you are, however you're receiving this message. What's actually there? What are you maybe avoiding dealing with or feeling? Is there discomfort in the body? Oh, excuse me. Is there something you've been avoiding, or some sort of effort that you've been putting in? Can you just give yourself, even just for the next few minutes, permission to just let go of all of that, and just to be with you? What I'm noticing in myself it's very hard to ignore is quite an intense pain, physical pain. I'm really tired right now. I notice that. That's sort of, this is my human experience right now. Tiredness. It's really early in the morning. I didn't sleep very well. And physical pain that is just like screaming out for my focus and my attention. Quite an intense burning in my throat, in my chest. And I'm kind of torn sometimes because I don't want to talk about it too much, because I feel like that then means that I focus on it more, and in some ways I wonder if that gives it more power in some ways. But this is the reality of my existence right now. There's just a lot of physical pain. A lot of physical pain in my experience. And I'm not as energized as I'd like to be for these videos, and not feeling as secure in myself and as safe in myself to share this. And this fear keeps coming up of like, what am I doing here? What am I actually trying to do here? Is this going to be of any value to anyone? Is this really just self-indulgent? I've said that on a previous video, but it just keeps coming up. And my plan with these videos is to just film a video a day for 30 days and then post the videos. So I'm not going to post them until I've done all 30 videos. In a way that's good, because I guess a friend of mine said yesterday, the real test will start when you actually start posting these videos. And she was right, I was just thinking about that. Like, it's probably a good thing right now that I'm filming all these videos and not posting them, because I'm quite sensitive, and this human heart that I have is quite, sensitive and gentle. And I can take things I've done so much work, but I still do take things quite personally. I have this inner child that really, in truth, really wants to be liked by people, and really struggles when there's any sort of negative feedback. Or I think the biggest fear in my mind right now is people in the comments just saying, who the fuck does this guy think he is? Like, thinking that he can just talk to the camera and babble on and think this is worthwhile or valuable or would get any views. He's not offering any solutions or information. But that really isn't my intention. I'm not doing this to provide useful information or anything like that. Really, it's kind of just extending an offer for us all to just slow down. In this capitalist world, I've certainly noticed, in the West anyway, you could be watching this from anywhere, I'm not sure. But I really notice in myself such an urge to rush a lot of the time. Constantly thinking about being somewhere else, doing the next thing, and feeling a real pressure to be productive, because it doesn't feel safe to not be productive, essentially. And I'm not exactly flush with cash. I'm sort of surviving paycheck to paycheck at the moment, and don't have a lot of spare disposable income at all. And there's part of me that I've realised with this health journey that I've been on, I've got this chronic condition that I've had for about 10 years now, and it's just been getting worse and worse. And one thing that I've realised recently is how I've got this financial sort of fear where I've been saying to myself subconsciously, okay, you can look after your health once you've got a bit more money, but don't stop trying to figure out how to earn a bit more money, or don't take your foot off the gas, because I guess the idea is, once I have enough money and a bit more freedom, I can then spend money on my health. But I've come to realise that that's mental. That's fucking bonkers. And the health's got to come first, and in a way this condition is really forcing that upon me. I have no choice but to slow down now. Chronic fatigue kind of comes with this condition. Wow, gosh, the rain's getting really loud. I hope you can still hear me. Yeah, I've had it the wrong way around, and I think it's finally clicked that it's like, oh wow, okay, you need to look after your health in order to be able to have the stability to be able to work. And I think it probably works the other way around, and maybe actually this constant feeling of not having enough and needing to, be constantly productive in this rat race in London particularly, that's probably not been great for my health, and if I can operate from a place of self-care, then I have a belief that, I don't know, in a more spiritual sense, the universe will sort of give back in some ways, because there's a self-respect there, and there's a self-care, and there's a self-worth there, and I think that energy of self-worth ends up resulting in making better choices and valuing myself a bit more and valuing my time a bit more. I'm going through a period at work where literally yesterday I've been writing an email to my boss to try and negotiate better pay, because I'm on a really low wage. So it's all interlinked, and I wonder how, it's just interesting to watch my human mind, with all these dynamics, and observe it, and just to try and pay attention to try and notice these things. And I think that's one thing that meditation has afforded me over the years. My practice has really helped me to just notice what's actually going on in my mind and reflect on what's actually happening in my mind, what thoughts I'm actually thinking, because so often I'm just thinking the thoughts, and that is just one thought to another. I'm sort of swept along by all of these thoughts that come and go, and I imagine that I start identifying with them. But this practice, again, I touched upon this in a previous video, but there's so many misconceptions around meditation. But I think primarily the first sort of stages of meditation is, it's not getting rid of thought, it's basically the practice of noticing what thoughts we're having, right? And so that's kind of the first step, is just like reflecting on what's just occurred to us, and not necessarily just taking it for granted as that's the truth, but really just noticing it first of all. And then I guess the next step would be, then my process seems to be like, notice what I've just thought, and then there's usually a response to noticing as well, which can be really hard for beginners when they're starting to meditate, because you do start noticing all of these thoughts, and actually a lot of them are really difficult and uncomfortable thoughts. So we start seeing we start noticing thoughts about ourselves that we don't like about ourselves. So they may be thoughts that are unpleasant towards others, or thoughts of lack of self-esteem or self-worth, or low confidence, or whatever, these just unpleasant thoughts. And then we start identifying with the thoughts and making a story about ourselves. So in my experience, the nature of my mind works by, I just have thoughts, they seem to be occurring to me like all the time. During meditation, I basically notice that I've been swept up in my thoughts, and I sort of reflect on what those thoughts were, and then usually I then have a sort of instant reactive thought that identifies with the thought I've had. It makes a story about me. I don't know, let's try and think of an example. So I look at someone else in the street, and let's say my mind just makes an instant snap judgment of them, like something that's not that nice, like, oh, they're a bit ugly. Let's just use that as an example. But that person's a bit ugly. That's not a very nice thought to think about someone else, right? But that's what's occurring, that's what's just occurred. And with this practice of meditation, it would be noticing, oh, I've just had the thought that someone was ugly, right? And then the next stage is often for me still, oh, that's not a very nice thing to say about someone. That's like, I mean, I don't literally say this in my head, but there's an undercurrent of like, oh, you're a bad person, for thinking that thought about someone. That's not very kind, and you need to be kind. And then my mind starts, if I allow myself to get swept up in it, it then starts panicking almost, and like going into like analysis mode, going into this mode of needing to fix the problem, right? Problem solver mode, and also, what's that word I'm looking for? Vigilance. It's like, okay, no, we can't drop this. We need to be really vigilant about fixing this, because it's not going to fix itself. It's not going to happen of its own accord. So my mind then starts racing, and it can just go off. But then I guess it would be noticing that response, and how well you can notice that response. And eventually, the goal is to basically notice without creating a story about it. So essentially, with practice, you start to just notice the thoughts coming along, and then not doing anything about them, and just allowing them to go. They sort of come and go. And if we don't stoke the flames, if we don't stoke the fire, we don't react in any way, we don't make any stories about the thought that's just occurred to us, then they just come and go. It's actually only when we start thinking that it's a problem, that we've just had this thought, that it becomes a problem. Thoughts in and of themselves aren't a problem. And what I found is that if I can bring that self-love to myself and allow those thoughts, let's say in this case, oh, that person's ugly, right? Not a very nice thought to think about someone, right? But if I can just observe that thought and just do nothing with it, just allow it to come and go, not make a story about it, not make a story about how I'm a bad person, then it doesn't stay with me. And it's just an occurrence that happens. And what I found is, with certain patterns of thought that I think regularly, I've noticed that the reason why they've become a pattern is because I have so much resistance towards that thought. I say that it's not okay for me to have that thought. But when I transition, so I'm having this same thought, let's say I'm having this thought, I just keep thinking people are ugly around me. This isn't real, but I just keep looking at everyone's like, fucking hell, she's ugly, he's ugly. It's just that, let's say it's this pattern, right? I've got plenty of unpleasant thoughts, but let's just use this one. Which isn't actually one that I seem to have, but there's this pattern. So this thought occurs so regularly. But what I've noticed is, as I've started to notice patterns in my mind occurring, and as I have identified with them less, and slowly over time made less and less stories about the thought, I then noticed that thought pattern just stops of its own accord, or it just reduces until I suddenly think one day, oh wow, I haven't been having those thoughts about how everyone's really ugly. So over time, I guess that what I'm trying to say is that shows you that it showed me that the resistance is the problem. The thought itself is not the problem. The mind starts panicking and tries to convince us with all its tricks and strength, that it's a massive problem that we've just thought that, or that we've just done that, or we've felt this, or whatever, you know, whatever's actually just occurred in our experience. But actually this bit is the problem. It's the fear that we have about the thought that we just had that's the problem, right? Not the problem itself. I love that expression. The only thing to fear is fear itself. And I think in my experience of this human experience, you know, it's so true. It's us worrying about the things that are occurring within us, and that's why this practice of self-love is so important, because it basically allows space. The more we can cultivate this acceptance of ourselves and what's occurring within us, the more space that we have to be ourselves, and to allow these darker, shadowier elements that just happen to us. And this is another thing I want to say, is we have no control over these thoughts, right? They occur to us. They just come in, right? It's not like we're intentionally like, now I'm going to think she's ugly. It's just, she's ugly, or he's ugly, or whatever. They just occur to us, you know? And then we beat ourselves up because we imagine that we have control, and that we imagine that we should be doing something differently. And the things that are acceptable and are not acceptable as part of the human experience are basically just programmed into us by our surroundings and our upbringing. Sometimes there's really good logic for why we say that certain things are, you know, acceptable and not acceptable. But ultimately, just imagine a world where, and this is the whole point of this channel really, it's just to really accept and allow space for all of our humanness, all of our mess. It's like, let's stop pretending that anything different, let's stop pretending that these things aren't happening to us, these thoughts aren't occurring to us, these feelings aren't occurring to us, we're not doing these things, we're all just imperfect. And yeah, as I've mentioned in a previous video, I've really struggled with perfectionism and feeling the necessity to basically be perfect, to be moral, to be like the most moral, kind human being I can possibly be. And only then can I be lovable. So I've spent many years imagining that I'm unlovable, undeserving because of all these things that are happening with me. But as I've started to allow more imperfection within me and messiness, being a human is messy as fuck, man. It's like, we're animals underneath it all as well. We have these animal instincts, and that's our nature, right? And I've been fighting my nature for so long. It's really uncomfortable when, like, I don't know, I find also this sort of, there's a kind of raw, vicious animalisticness in me sometimes that I'm quite scared of, because I'm really scared of hurting myself or other people. I'm terrified of the consequences that might bring, you know? Like, I guess like the example that just comes to mind is like the guy who's a werewolf, who's like terrified of the animal coming out and hurting others, but he can't help it. That's his nature. He's a werewolf, right? And the more he resists it, the harder, the more pain it probably inflicts in the end. So the more we can get in touch with these parts of us, these parts of our nature that we find difficult to accept, the less power they have over us, and actually the less harm that we cause by allowing space for it, because then we sort of process it. We allow ourselves to process it, and again, it's the resistance to, in my experience, it's the resistance towards these things that basically result in the very thing that we're afraid of. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. But it's scary, you know? It's really scary to accept these parts of us because society tell us that it's wrong, it's bad, it's whatever, you know. And if we're surrounded by people who we imagine think that, then it's very hard and really, really scary, and it takes a lot of bravery and courage to turn towards ourselves and to face the truth. And so this is the whole point of the channel, just like, can we be courageous enough to just take a big sigh and just turn towards what's real and allow space for it and bring some self-love and some self-kindness to these parts of us that are just there whether we like it or not, and they don't make us bad. And a really beautiful thing about this practice, right, is in my experience, the more love and space and acceptance I can bring to myself and the messier parts that I find really uncomfortable within myself, the more compassion I can bring to myself, the more compassion, the more capacity for compassion I have for others. I become kinder. And you think, my fear is that it would be the opposite, you know. If I allow myself to be a dick sometimes, then maybe I'm just going to be a dick. I'm going to just be more of a dick, and I'm going to push people away more. I'm going to be less kind to people. But actually, it's the opposite. I'm allowing myself to give space to those parts of me that want to lash out and want to, you know, be messy and imperfect and unpleasant and whatever it is. In doing so, I allow space and patience and kindness towards others when they're showing the same thing. And I now believe, I don't think I can actually show that level of compassion and kindness towards others if I'm not showing it towards myself. Because I think then it comes from like a theoretical or performative kind of compassion where I'm like, oh, I should do this. And then it's not a real heart-centered understanding of what that person's going through. It's like, oh no, it's all right, you know, don't worry. It's this, kind of performative. And in some ways, in those moments, I'm trying to ease my own discomfort at the fact that they're uncomfortable. It's not necessarily me being purely compassionate towards them and what they're experiencing. I'm actually wanting them to stop because it's making me uncomfortable, you know. But true compassion, in my eyes, is when we can really step into that other person's shoes and allow them to be exactly as they are going through, exactly what they're going through, without needing to give them advice, without needing to change what's happening, without needing to stop it. It's just to hold space for it. Allow this person to be seen and felt and heard in their messiness. Because when I receive that, when I'm, you know, going through something difficult, and someone just holds space for me, God, I'm like, oh wow, maybe it's okay to feel like this, and maybe I am still lovable despite this part of myself. And it's such a permission giver. Whereas if someone's response is like, oh no, it's okay, like you'll be okay, let's try and fix this problem, I feel like, oh wow, that person, okay, maybe this really isn't lovable, this messy part of me isn't okay, and maybe I need to fix it and, you know, do what I can to change myself. And it's painful, man, like fuck, it's painful underneath it all. Even if I'm not consciously aware that that's going on, there's a deeper sense of such pain in not being accepted by someone. So, and my point is there, like, making space for the more space that I can make for myself, the more I can just hold others without needing to change them or take away their pain, or to, you know, the less I feel like, oh, I need to get rid of the feelings that I have around this, because I've come to peace with it within myself. So I'm able to hold space for others better. And yeah, in a way that seems to initially defy logic, I'm able to be more compassionate when I allow the more shadowy, messier things that occur within my experience to be okay, to have space, to just exist within me. And I think that's what integration is in my eyes. It's not having to change anything, or it's not having to add anything or learn anything. It's just allowing these things that we become aware of, these darker, shadowier parts of ourselves, to just exist within us, and for that to be okay, you know. And that is what healing is, I think. I've touched upon this, maybe, I'm realising, in a previous video, but it's so worth revisiting. That's my understanding of what healing is. That's been my human experience, you know. And the amount of peace and like love that I experience nowadays compared to even maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, like night and day. Me 4 years ago compared to me now is like, wow, I feel so much more fulfilled. I feel so much more peaceful and loving and compassionate. I much prefer being the person that I am today compared to so much of the suffering that I was experiencing 3 or 4 years ago and beyond. So yeah, I'd really invite you and encourage you to consider this a sort of invitation to just softly, slowly, just loosen a little bit around some of these more uncomfortable parts of ourselves. And it takes time. It's not something you can suddenly, I mean, maybe it is possible to suddenly just have loads of love for a dynamic in you, but it takes practice, you know. And that's where I'd really encourage, if you haven't got a meditation practice right now, if you want to get better at this, meditation is basically the practice of doing this. Well, I mean, there's lots of different forms of meditation, but this is one of the main things about meditation that sort of naturally happens, even if you just, I do a method called just sitting, right? So I literally just sit down with no goal, and I just am aware of I just try and bring awareness to what's going on, and that's it. And over time you just naturally just start noticing it. You can't help it because you've turned your attention towards your thoughts, and it just takes time and practice and consistency. And I know for a lot of people it sounds scary to sit with our mind because we're worried about the madness, or, you know, like it's a really uncomfortable thing to got a seagull having a great time over there, you can probably hear that. It can be really uncomfortable to just acknowledge and sit with all of these, you know, because there may be grief, there may be all sorts of difficult, uncomfortable emotions to have to sit with and turn our attention towards, because most of the time we're living in this state of being distracted and being outward and trying to keep ourselves, like our mind is often trying to keep us away from feeling, from thinking these thoughts, you know. It's like I notice in myself, thoughts arise and then there's this response that's like, nope, got to think of something else, you know, and that's suppression. And that is the path to dis-ease and bad health. And that's, I'm sure, contributed. That's manifested in me as some serious physical pain. But yeah, I'd really encourage you to just try and approach it with kindness, you know. And it does take a long time, but I promise you it's worth it on the other side. I was sort of daunted when I first started, thinking, God, I've heard that it's going to take years for any benefits to actually come. I started seeing some benefits relatively quickly in the end, but I'm now 10 years down or whatever. I've been meditating for a long time. And now I'm here, and I'm so grateful that I decided to dedicate myself to this practice. I can't tell you enough how much of a life-changing practice it's been for me, and how much healing it's brought for me, and how my quality of life is just so much better, you know, despite not having much money, despite not having the house, the partner, the kids, the whatever society deems as successful. I have peace. Well, not complete peace, there's still plenty of work to do. I have so much more peace and contentment and embodiment, you know. So yeah, there's my invitation to you. Maybe I would start with some guided meditation. I started back in the day with Headspace. I haven't used it for many years, but I hear it's kind of gone in a different direction, so maybe that's not the way to go. But just find whatever works for you, and guidance to begin with is probably a good idea, because our own mind, it's possible to just sit, right, and just say, there's no goal here, there's nothing I'm trying to do. My only goal is just to sit quietly with my eyes closed for 10 minutes a day, whatever it is, 5 minutes even a day. And that's the goal. Like, almost forget the process of it. Your only task is just to sit for 5 minutes. So anyway, yeah. The treasures that will be on the other side of it are enormous. And they're life-changing, and they can change your relationships. You know, as I've just kind of explained, you can become so much more compassionate, and life can become so much more easeful, you know. So yeah, the invitation is maybe take this as a sign to step into meditation if you've had that like sense that, oh, maybe that's something I'd like to do. It's just a tool. You certainly don't have to. It's just a really helpful tool. But by all means, don't. Do whatever serves you, you know, whatever your heart is calling you, or your stomach, your gut is calling you to do, then my recommendation would be to just follow that. But yes, I'm really noticing right now that my pain is really reduced as I've started speaking about something I'm so passionate about. So yeah, feeling really grateful for you, again, for holding space for me and this practice. I have no idea, again, I've said this in previous videos, I have no idea how these videos are going to go down. I really don't. And I'm not expecting them to take off at all. I'm sort of imagining that there's just going to be this little quiet corner of YouTube where there's a few people that just really slow down and yeah, just join me in this inquiry into what it means to be human, what it is to be human, this human experience. And I'm using myself as a kind of test dummy, and I'd love to hear from you guys. And I also had the thought this morning that maybe what I'll do is because this is obviously just me talking to you, but I'm also really open to holding space for others. So if you want to talk to me, and I can return the favour, then I'm trying to figure out ways of doing that. And maybe I'll sort of offer one-on-one sessions, maybe. I don't know, it's just an idea. But I'd love to help, you know, whatever it is that you're going through. And just hold space for you. I'm not here to tell you what to do or give you advice or whatever. Yeah, so I'd love to return the favour, but just to share some gratitude for you watching this far. I know these videos are quite long and I'm just kind of rambling on, seeing what comes every day, which is a practice for me that I'm trying to cultivate, not worrying about planning and all that stuff. But yeah, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this video. That is, yeah, I genuinely really appreciate it, and I'm not expecting people to do so. So if you're one of those people, then thank you. And yeah, if this like impacts you in some way, then a way to support this and to kind of, you know, help the algorithm and all that stuff is to do the usual things: subscribe, like, comment, share on YouTube. I'd be really touched actually if you felt like you wanted to do that. It would really be fulfilling to me, and I'd love to reach as many people and you know, help as many people as possible, if that's what these things do. I'm primarily doing it for myself, kind of selfish reasons, I guess. But yeah, if this makes a difference, then that will be amazing. So do like, subscribe, share, comment, all that stuff, and yeah, let me know how it your experience, and I'd love to hear from you. Yeah, and I'll wrap it up there, but thanks again, and yeah, I hope to see you in the next video, and good luck on this mad ride that it is to be human. Yeah, happy humaning. Alrighty, much love to you all.